Let me ask you something unsettling. What happens when everything you trusted is gone, the city is destroyed, the temple is ashes, and grief has already said everything it can say? What comes after lament? That's where the book of Ezekiel begins. And it doesn't begin softly. Ezekiel doesn't open with tears. Lamentations already cried. Ezekiel opens with visions, violent, strange, overwhelming. Because when words are no longer enough, the mind speaks in images. Ezekiel is written in exile, not in the city, not in the temple, not at home, displaced. And that matters because trauma changes how truth arrives. The first thing Ezekiel sees is not comfort, it's chaos, wheels within wheels, fire, movement, creatures that don't make sense. This isn't fantasy, it's shock. Ezekiel shows what happens when reality collapses faster than understanding. The brain scrambles to reframe the world. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. Ezekiel is not trying to calm people down, he's trying to wake them up because numbness is more dangerous than pain. Ezekiel himself becomes part of the message. God doesn't just speak to him, God speaks through his body. He acts out messages, lies on his side for days, refuses to mourn publicly, builds models of destruction. Why? Because people stop listening to words. This book understands something deep. When truth is ignored long enough, it has to become visual, disruptive, impossible to ignore. Ezekiel's message is brutal. The destruction wasn't an accident. It wasn't just bad luck. It wasn't only external enemies. It was internal decay, leadership corruption, false confidence, spiritual denial. That's hard to hear after loss, but necessary. Ezekiel refuses false comfort. He doesn't say, "You didn't deserve this." He says, "This didn't come out of nowhere." That honesty hurts, but it restores agency. One of Ezekiel's most repeated ideas is responsibility, not inherited guilt, personal responsibility. Each person is accountable for their own choices. That was revolutionary. People wanted to blame the past, ancestors, systems, history. Ezekiel says, you still choose even in exile. This book also dismantles a dangerous belief that God is tied to a building. The temple is gone, so people assume God is gone. Ezekiel says, no, God moves. God is not trapped in ruins. That matters for people who lost everything. Faith is not locked to location. Hope is portable. Ezekiel then turns toward leadership. He condemns shepherds who fed themselves instead of protecting the flock. That language is sharp because power that serves itself creates collapse. But Ezekiel doesn't stay in judgment. He moves toward restoration, slowly, unexpectedly. Then comes one of the most famous images in the Bible, the Valley of Dry Bones. Bones scattered, disconnected, bleached, no life, no movement, no hope. God asks a terrifying question. Can these bones live? Not will they. Can they? That's not optimism. That's possibility. Ezekiel answers honestly, I don't know. That's the right answer. Because pretending confidence after trauma is lying. Then breath enters, not immediately flesh, breath first, meaning before structure, hope before form. This vision is not about zombies. It's about people who are alive but feel dead inside, disconnected, drained, numb. Ezekiel says restoration doesn't start with rebuilding systems. It starts with breath, spirit, life returning quietly. Another powerful shift happens in this book. God says something radical. I will give you a new heart, not repaired, new. Because some damage can't be fixed. It must be replaced. That's deep trauma wisdom. Some versions of you can't survive the future. They have to be released. Ezekiel also introduces accountability paired with hope. Justice doesn't disappear, but mercy grows. Transformation becomes possible. Later in the book, Ezekiel sees a rebuilt temple, but it's different. Water flows from it. Life spreads outward. Healing touches everything. This is not nostalgia. It's evolution. The past will not be restored exactly as it was. Something new must emerge. That's uncomfortable, but necessary. Ezekiel ends with the city renamed, not by achievement, not by power, but by presence. The Lord is there. That's the final message. This book matters today because people survive collapse, but don't know how to reimagine life afterward. Ezekiel teaches that rebuilding starts internally. If Isaiah warns before collapse, Jeremiah weeps through it. Lamentations grieves it. Ezekiel reprograms the survivors. This is not gentle faith. This is survival faith. Vision when logic fails. Imagination when structure is gone. Ezekiel shows that God doesn't just comfort pain, he confronts denial, he dismantles false beliefs, then slowly he rebuilds. If you've ever felt, I survived something, but I'm not the same. I can't go back. I don't know how to move forward. Ezekiel understands you. He doesn't tell you to return to normal. He tells you to become new. And that's terrifying, but it's also hope because bones that were dry don't need to remember how to live. They need breath. And breath changes everything. That's the book of Ezekiel. Not comforting, not simple, but honest enough to rebuild a shattered people.